Gayle. How are you doing?
Hi Eric, how's you?
I'm good. I'm good. I haven't seen any posts from you telling the world how brilliant it is to be juggling jobs and homeschooling and all the things. I haven't seen any of those from you.
Yeah, I'm kind of too busy for that because, well, as you know, I've got 7-year-old twin boys, so great respect for the teachers out there. That's all I'm saying, and we're trying to keep it all going, but we have our
We've got
days.
we've got some friends who are both teachers and who've got 3 kids at home, and they are having to be online doing different courses in different parts of the house. One's a PE teacher, one's a languages teacher. So she can hear him telling kids to jump up and down. He can hear her speaking French to kids while trying to keep their own kids on computers in other parts of the house. Just bedlam. Just
It's
utter
crazy,
bedlam.
and I've discovered my husband types incredibly loudly, so we can't work in the same vicinity. It just isn't happening. So yeah, you muddle along and find your way. But there's been some nice moments as well. We've planted a vegetable patch, so the kids are enjoying, sort of the excitement of these things finally coming through. So the
Finally
beets
happening.
sprouted this week. So fun.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And more to come, I'm sure. More to come, I'm sure. So professional life for you, just wanted to go back and unpack that a little bit, just because I believe this might be, for the woman who's interviewed about 1 billion people, this might be your first actual interview on you.
I can't think of ever giving an interview any time before, and it feels quite uncomfortable. And now I have a great sympathy for all the people that I've kind of put some pressure on. I genuinely can't think of any time that I've been interviewed, apart from for jobs, clearly.
Yes, exactly. But
This is a bit different.
this is far more pleasant, far more. So,
you get to turn the heat on.
Yeah, I know exactly, and I'm going to turn it on big time.
No.
You are a proper journal, right? You're a journalist to trade.
I started off in news, yeah, a long time ago.
What drove you? When did you realise journalism's for me, and why?
Oh goodness! I mean, genuinely, from the age of about 13, I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and I know, a lot of children, it takes a while to get there, but I was just absolutely dead certain that that's what I wanted. Had 2 brilliant modern studies teachers when I was at school, who I don't think necessarily taught to the curriculum. They're quite well known in these parts, Charlie Crow and Dickie Ewan. Sadly, neither no longer with us, but they just brought out this passion, and they encouraged you to read news and get into stuff, and I remember learning about the refugee crisis in the Gaza Strip, and being encouraged to write a letter to Yasser Arafat. That was the approach, Never got a response, but it just ignited this absolute passion in me. And straight from school, went to uni, did a degree in journalism, and then went and worked in a weekly newspaper, like everybody does, because it's a vocational job. You have to learn. You learn more on the job than you do.
So that was in Ellen, right?
Yeah. So Ellen Times.
Ellen Times.
Job. Yeah, I mean, at that time there were 2 newspapers in Ellen, which is amazing to think about, and it just shows you, newspapers were the heart of the community. Covered a lot of community council meetings.
I bet you did.
But it was a friendly place, and there was still some good news happening. Didn't stay there for long. It was about 9 months before I moved on, and I think I worked in newspapers for about 5 years all in, and just loved it. I mean, absolutely loved it. Didn't really intend to ever leave, but an opportunity came up in Cambridge, and I would like to say it was a strategic maneuver, but the reality is my boyfriend was moving there to open up a record shop.
Cool.
FOP Records, I don't know if you remember them from Byers Road back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
was that his?
Well, he was involved, so I mean, he worked for the one in Aberdeen, and then they had this shop opening in Cambridge, and I just said, yeah, let's do it, thinking I would, get a job in journalism, and then it didn't work out that way. I ended up working for an agency, and just basically haven't looked back, because it opened my eyes to this whole other world of media and marketing and everything else that goes with it. And basically, in those days, so I'm going back a good 20 odd years. Our big client in Cambridge was the United Nations World Conservation Monitoring Centre. So, and at that time, trying to put climate change on the agenda, these scientists were, trying their hardest, but they speak a different language. Yeah. And it was our job to try and make this, sort of palatable for the people. So it was a lot of, launching the World Book of Trees, the World Book of Mountains, and, you know, endangered species and things like that. So, you know, you can see how far things have come in those 2 decades, but still a way to go.
Totally, but then you made it back. You clawed your way back to Aberdeen, and
Via Manchester,
via Manchester.
and then been back in Aberdeen for a decade now. I got an email today that said, "Congratulations on your 10 years at Big," which I actually thought I'd already passed. So 10 years.
10
because
years.
I think I met you probably pretty soon after I moved back, and
I think so. I'm pretty sure it was your first week or your first month or something like that, and you were still sort of like telling me about, you know, just moved up from England and all of that sort of stuff. So you come from all of that, you do that sort of full circle, you go down and get involved in all the really cool stuff and interesting stuff, and then you're like, one day I'll be writing stuff about oil and gas. That's what I need to do.
I know, and I'd worked in a few different sectors, but I was brand new to oil and gas when I moved back here 10 years ago. And I was apprehensive, I'm not going to lie. You know, when I first heard, okay, there is this job, you could be in the oil and gas team, and I thought, I don't know anything about oil and gas. Big paid for me to do a course at University of Aberdeen, you know, one of these, like, you know, sort of crash courses. That slightly frightened me because I didn't understand all the acronyms. But I think, like anything in life, you have to just really apply yourself, read everything that you can find, and meet with people and ask them the questions and really get to know it. And the reality about communications, though, is, you know, the tactics, you know, are pretty much the same regardless of the sector. You've got to get to know the audience, you've got to get to know the language, you've got to get to know what works. But, you know, giving good communications advice, it doesn't matter which sector you're in, you know, you still want to be able to give good advice.
So you've come from when I met you, just coming back to Aberdeen and going to do your crash course in whatisoilandgas.com. You've become a sort of a known figure. You probably, you spoke about some acronyms that you didn't understand. You've probably invented a few yourself along the way. I think you have. But you've now become, you know, very specialist in what you do. You're director at Big now, heading up that oil and gas and other services and all of that. So you spent your life trying to, and from working with you, knowing what you do, you know, people like me sit down in a room and go, well, we're doing this, but there's probably not a story in that. And you go, oh yes, there is. Oh yes, there is. So you've been trying to find stories in stuff for years. What is it like trying to find the good news element of stories in stuff right now?
There is still good news out there. That's the one thing I would say. And I think that we shouldn't be fearful of sharing good news. It just has to be, you know, the right sentiment. And, you know, I think there is some amazing stories. The North Sea is still operational. I think, you know, industry's done a bloody brilliant job of responding to the crisis, you know, organising the COVID helicopters, working together, that collaboration to make sure that we can keep the lights on, you know, for everybody. So I do think, you know, there's kudos there. You know, people out there doing a tough job in tough circumstances, with a double whammy as well of oil price volatility, although it has edged up a little bit further again, which, you know, I'm pleased to see. But, you know, there's no denying it's a tough time. But that is when you have to demonstrate to the industry what you're doing to support the industry, how you can support the efficiencies in the industry. You know, I think we need to keep things moving, and that's the most important thing. So, yeah, I think the sentiment of some of the communications has to change. At the moment, you know, certainly with how we're supporting clients, a lot of it is on really strong leadership comms. What I've absolutely loved is sitting in at town halls, you know, with 200 strong offshore workforce, UKMD with his Corona beard, wearing a t-shirt, speaking to the people about, you know, with his kids appearing in the background. And the response that we've had from those offshore teams is unlike anything that we've seen before, because the communications previously have maybe just been a bit too corporate. And I think that they're much more human now. And I think that, you know, that leadership piece is so important just now, letting people know that you don't have all the answers, but you're trying, you know, and being visible. You know, I think that's been, you know, that's hugely important. But also, you know, when there is some successes, share those successes, because we need to make sure that the news agenda isn't all about the price and project delays. Because, you know, I've got clients that have still, you know, counter-cyclical that are still drilling. So I think we need to show that. And then also, you know, we've got this amazing pivot to low carbon happening.
Yeah.
You know, I did see a report that came out speaking about, you know, that this may enable that even further, that decarbonisation piece, and there's some brilliant work going on, particularly in this part of Scotland. So I think it's about demonstrating that we've got the expertise here, you know, that we can export that.
Yeah.
And that I actually think it's some of those big players that are going to enable the scalability, you know, so we need to work together on this. It shouldn't be a them and us.
Totally. I think what I've learned over the last, you know, I've always been aware of it, but what I've really learned and really now know is the power in collaboration, because the amount of people are busy. When times are high, people are busy. People go into, you know, undesigned silos just by nature because you're busy on what you're doing. But when we're all in this kind of together, I know it's a cheesy thing to say, the amount of collaboration, the amount of help, and the amount of willingness to, you know, drop the traditional boundaries of, you know, commercial competition and all that, but actually just get together to solve problems and maybe even change the dynamic of the city a little bit, or this region a little bit. I think it's really bubbling away, and I think it's going to bubble over.
Yeah,
What about
I think
yourself?
there's a bit more openness and receptiveness to that at the moment, and it's good to see. You know, I think there needs to be that sharing philosophy. So I think that sometimes a crisis does bring out the best in an industry and in people as well. So I hope that we don't forget these lessons that we're learning right now.
Totally. So Big's reach has grown since its start, and I think when you joined, I think it was mainly Aberdeen with maybe some other offices, but you're truly a much bigger organisation now, right? You have other offices in whereabouts?
Yes, I mean, we've always been Glasgow headquartered,
Right.
so,
Okay.
but there's really, you know, obviously our energy unit is in Aberdeen and always has been, because that's, you know, where we're at. But we've got offices in Edinburgh, but also Manchester opened a few years ago, and I mean, that city is just still booming.
Yeah.
When I worked there, it was regeneration I worked in, and there was a lot of investment going into the city. But yeah, we just won an account there this week for an Italian pasta company. So they've used this time to say, what do people want? Pasta.
Yeah.
So they brought forward their plans. So yeah, that was a new win this week. But yeah, Manchester's doing really well, and you know, quite a diverse offering there. So you know, quite a lot of influencer engagement, that kind of thing. So I think Big's 20 this year. And when
20.
we started off, yes. So when we started off, we weren't big. You know, the founders' initials were BIG. So so we were quite small when we started, and the whole ethos was, of course, we get stuff in papers and we keep stuff out of papers. It was very much a PR remit, and I think in the last 10 years there's been a huge pivot, and our digital and creative offering is you know, is immense, and it's fully integrated, and you know, there's been a huge amount of investment in that. So, and I do actually even think, you know, in terms of this scenario, we were quite quick to move to the home working because we're all already set up for it.
Right.
However, it has really brought our integrated offering even more together, because you have, you know, before it's, you know, we would have the video conference calls and they were done from the boardroom and they were, I guess, a bit formal. Whereas now it's, you know, 10-minute chat with a colleague in Manchester, and you know, we'll do our big bar on a Friday, you know, with everybody rather than just one office. So, you know, it's had its benefits there as well.
Totally. So just going back to what you said there about PR evolving and modernizing and getting more digital and social, what is the upside of, and you know, what's the output of that change? So when you started in PR, it was newspapers, magazines, journals, and events. Now, you know, massive digital change, digital and social transformation. What has it really meant for PR, and how has it changed what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a revolution, really, isn't it, within our career time in terms of that change to digital. And I don't know about you, but the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, and I probably shouldn't do this or admit to it, is I grab my phone and I scroll the news, and I see what, you know, just catch up on what's happening. But I still like to go to reputable news sites for that, you know. So, you know, I think that newspapers are having a tough time at the moment. I think it's about how to keep them commercialized. But the reality is, I think there will always be a place for good journalism. And I think there should, you know, this rhetoric about fake news, it just annoys me. and we know where it's coming from.
Yep.
But the reality is, society is a better place for having a good media and a good independent media that will challenge our leaders. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some quality issues with some factions, but overall, I want to see those credible news sources survive and thrive. And I think some of them have been really, great with their digital offering. I think it's how, we get people to pay for the content. Because that content does have a value for us. I guess before, when I started, you spoke about spiking a story, and that's because there was a physical spike. That's
right.
Where things have changed. Basically, we don't. We still send news releases, but the bigger part of what we do is content.
Yeah.
And it's that multi-channel approach. So it's video, it's how do we engage? And people want to be measured now. They want to see measurable results. So I don't think we can just go into a meeting and speak about writing a press release. I think it has to be about, how do we get this content out there? But news channels are still a really important channel for that content,
Totally. Do you still carry a pad and a pencil? Are you still on the tools?
I always have a pad and a pencil. I was going to show you. On Sunday, I took a sort of somersault from my bike and went over the handlebars. So at the moment, I can't actually hold a pen in my right hand. So I'm recording everything. But I think those old habits kind of die hard, don't they? So, we record things as well. It's good to have a recording.
Absolutely. So for someone who's spent their professional life and even maybe going back to the age of 13, 14 at school, looking for the news piece and the sort of good in a set of words or a subject or an issue, what do you hope to see, or what are you seeing just now, which is a good practice or good thinking and something that you hope to see good coming out of all this drama that we're all in right now? Where would you like to see it go?
Oh goodness, that's a good question. I think there have been some epic fails.
yeah.
So I think people need authenticity, right? And I think those that didn't move quickly or didn't move in the right way, their brands will be affected. I think about KFC, that finger licking advert got so many complaints because people were feeling quite squeamish about licking fingers, and Sports Direct, claiming that they were sort of essential and then bumping up prices online or whatever it was. There's a lot of not such great practice. However, having said that, I think there's been brilliant examples of organisations that have really got the mood, captured the mood, responded really quickly. From a personal perspective, we work with Aberdeen Football Club, and they've got their community trust, and their social media account has just been absolutely brilliant. They've had players phoning old-time fans just to see how they're doing. That kind of sentiment of caring for people, I think, has been really important in this climate. I think from a business-to-business perspective, as I said before, the internal communications piece has been so important, and that's what I want to see continue, that really strong leadership. From an external perspective, I think that people actually, can't stop communicating. I think that would be the biggest mistake. But I think to carry on doing what you've always done isn't going to work either. So a little bit is about taking the time to go back to the drawing board. How's the audience changed? How have their needs changed? And how can you respond to that? I think this idea of this is what we've always done, so this is what we should do, is just not going to wash. So I think it's sensible to take the time to give that some proper thought.
Absolutely, and I think that's just a perfect way to end this. That is absolutely perfect. People can get a hold of you on LinkedIn or through the big partnership website, right? Nice and easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear from anybody, and it's been so nice to catch up with you, Eric.
Oh, so absolutely. I'm desperately sorry to hear that you're not able to write down your thoughts. You should just click your fingers and get a scribe from the family.
This is what I need. Yeah, this is what I need. Or I could try and do the left-handed, but maybe not.
Absolutely perfect. Listen, it's been great to catch up with you. We will
Lovely
see you later.
Eric.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thanks then. Bye.